World leaders are converging in New York this week for the annual United Nations General Assembly, which kicked off yesterday with a focus on Ukraine. Leaders from some 157 countries meeting in person after 3 years of virtual meetings due to the coronavirus pandemic. The war in Ukraine and the impact of rising food and energy prices, some of the key issues that will dominate this year's gathering. President Joe Biden, who was in London here for Queen Elizabeth's funeral, will be addressing the assembly tomorrow instead of today. That is a break from tradition, as American presidents historically go second among heads of state to address the meeting, following Brazil. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also will address the assembly this week with a pre-recorded video message. And joining us now from New York, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. Mr. Secretary General, it's great to have you with us this morning. Obviously, Ukraine is front and center and on the minds of all the leaders around the world. What will you be saying? What will you be doing at this General Assembly to address the situation? And what do you have to say to Vladimir Putin as he has promised to escalate now in the face of this effective lightning counteroffensive that has been so successful for the Ukrainians?
My main message will be that we have to stay the course to support Ukraine because what we see now is the most dangerous times we have seen since the end of the Second World War, with the biggest war in Europe since the Second World War, with ramifications for all of us, energy, food crisis. So therefore, we need to support Ukraine. They have made progress, but we need to ensure that Putin doesn't win in Ukraine, but that Ukraine prevails as an independent sovereign state.
So certainly, a major topic of discussion this week will be keeping Europe together, rallied behind the cause as it faces potentially a very cold and difficult winter. But what message needs to be sent to those nations sitting on the sidelines? India, China, those that have continued to purchase Russian energy and therefore keeping aloft Putin's war machine.
The message is that we should all stand up for the international rules-based order, because this is not only about supporting Ukraine, this is about supporting an order which has ensured peace and prosperity for decades, and we need to ensure to protect that world order. Part of that is also to strengthen the United Nations, to strengthen international institutions, because in uncertain times, in dangerous times, we need international institutions like the UN, but also like NATO even more.
So we certainly expect to hear from the president tomorrow, who has done, as you have, kept a remarkable job of keeping allies together in lockstep. We were just saying we were both in Madrid, the last NATO summit, when he said that he would be there as long as it takes. As Europe is about to enter potentially a difficult period, what are you telling the heads of states? How are you keeping everyone focused here as the potential, not just energy prices going up, there may be a lack of gas and heat, plunging homes into darkness and cold? So
winter is coming. The winter is going to be hard, especially for Ukrainians, but also for the rest of Europe. And therefore, we are conveying a very clear message that our support to Ukraine need to be sustained, because this is not only about protecting Ukrainians, but it's also about protecting us. If President Putin wins in Ukraine, the message to him, but also to other authoritarian powers, for instance China, will be that they can use military force to achieve their goals. And that will endanger not only Ukraine, but the rest of the world.
So, Mr. Secretary General, what do you say to nations like India, the aforementioned India, who are sort of on the sidelines with regard to the war in Ukraine? What do you say to nations like that this week? What will you say, especially given the supposed stronger alliance between China and Russia?
So I say to India and to all nations that we should support Ukraine's right for self-defense, and we should impose sanctions on Russia, who is responsible for a war of aggression against the independent sovereign nation. Ukraine is defending themselves. That's a right which is enshrined in the UN Charter. So everyone that believes in the UN Charter, a rules-based order, should of course support Ukraine. When it comes to China, we regret that China has not been able to clearly condemn the Russian aggression against Ukraine, and I will meet the Chinese foreign minister later on this week. And for NATO, it's important to engage with China. We don't regard China as an adversary, but we need also to raise our concerns, for instance, when it comes to Ukraine.
Mr. Secretary General, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has given an interview in which says he believes that President Putin wants to end the war in Ukraine as soon as possible. Have you had any indication that Vladimir Putin has had some kind of change of heart, is preparing to do something that would end the war in Ukraine as soon as possible? And a second quick question, is Turkey being helpful or unhelpful to NATO over the question of Ukraine?
Turkey is an important ally, not least by being so important for our southern flank, but also helping to facilitate, for instance, the agreements on, that allowed or opened up for export of grain out of Ukraine, which is important for reducing the pressure on the global food prices. So far, we have not seen any indication that Russia has changed its overall strategic goal of taking control over Ukraine. At the same time, we also know that President Putin has made several big strategic mistakes. He thought he was able to take control over Kiev within days. He had to withdraw its forces from around Kiev after some few weeks. Then he launched a big offensive in Donbass. That offensive has been stalled by the brave, courageous Ukrainian forces. And now, actually, the Ukrainian forces have been able to retake territory. He also called for NATO to close its doors, to not allow any new members. What we now see is that Finland and Sweden have been invited to become full members of NATO, showing that NATO's door is open. So he wanted less NATO. He's getting more NATO on its border, both with more military presence, but also with new members, Finland and Sweden.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. Again, President Biden will address the UN General Assembly tomorrow. Mr. Secretary General, thanks for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.